Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Collett, and I'm Professional Standards Director at the Chartered Insurance Institute. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about the new Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent title, which is very relevant to auditors of cover holders. By the end of this session, you'll be able to summarize how chartered status aligns with Lloyd's culture, purpose, and professional standards, describe what chartered status means and the value to cover holders, and explain how the new Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent title can benefit cover holders. So turning to the first point. For over 10 years, the CII has had corporate chartered titles for insurers and brokers. But with the growth of delegated underwriting, we recognized that there was a segment of the market which did not enjoy a chartered title, which signifies professionalism. After 2 years of market consultation, member voted our AGM and approval of the Privy Council, we were able to launch our new title for Lloyd's cover holders earlier this year for both individuals and firms. As Paul Brady, head of policy and third-party oversight at Lloyd's, said at the launch of the new chartered title last month, we see approved status at Lloyd's as one of the gold standards of professional competence and integrity. And that's what CII chartered status also represents. He went on to say, what I think is striking is the consistency and alignment between Lloyd's standards and expectations and the CII criteria. And this is borne out by what the Lloyd's suitability criteria includes. Not only does it align with the CII Code of Ethics, but it covers things like competence, reputation, and character of the cover holders' directors, officers, and staff, which are also things that form part of the criteria for chartered status. So let's look at that now. The key criteria for chartered status is set out on this slide. It includes leadership qualifications and membership, core membership for staff, commitment to professional development, alignment with the CII Code of Ethics, and an established trading history. Importantly, though, the 3-year pre-application trading requirement is waived for firms that are already approved cover holders at Lloyd's. This is in recognition of the thorough financial checks and audits undertaken as part of cover holder approval and monitoring, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of. And this is a distinct advantage for cover holder firms seeking to become chartered, which we wish to highlight. I'd also like to highlight further similarities between CII standards and those of Lloyd's cover holders. For example, the CII makes clear that chartered firms must act with the highest ethical standards and integrity. Similarly, Lloyd's cover holders must conduct business with integrity and due care and skill, as I've set out here. The CII code says firms must always act in the best interests of their clients. Consistent with that, Lloyd's cover holders must deal with customers and clients openly and in good faith, and think about their information needs. The CII also expects its chartered firms to comply with all relevant laws and regulations, just like Lloyd's does. So to conclude, both Lloyd's and the CII expect high standards of professionalism of firms. So we've talked about alignment, but what does corporate chartered status actually mean? Let's take a quick poll to see how many of you know what being a chartered firm means. So I'm going to now see on Slido. It looks like the poll is going live, and I look forward to seeing the result. Please do take the poll so that we get a good idea of what people know about chartered status and and what they don't. Oh, I see the numbers going up. 52, 56. That's great. Hopefully everyone will have a chance to have a vote. The good news is it's a yes/no question, so not difficult. And it just gives me a better idea of how much the audience is already aware. I think we're up to the 70s already, which is great. Pretty amazing we can do all this virtually. I will leave it to our hosts to inform me when the poll is closed, and then we can go further.
Yeah, it looks like we've got most of the results in now. So I'm seeing about a 60% are saying no with the... Oh, no, it's changing still.
Great. Well, I've got another poll for you at sort of towards the end of the presentation, so look out for that one as well. And I'm keeping track of this on my Slido. And I can see the numbers are still creeping up slowly. But we should probably move on soon. So maybe we could just take a tally now of what the results are.
Yeah. So it's looking like no was the most popular answer, but it was quite close. I think it was 55% was no and 45% answered yes.
Okay, well, that's really helpful to know. So we've got a majority of you not really knowing what chartered status means, but a good number of you do, and that's great. And hopefully you'll learn something more from this session, even for those of you who already have a bit of an idea. So let's carry on and see if I can illuminate things further for you. So essentially, corporate chartered status is a shared public declaration of professional standards, and that's by both the CII and firms. And holding chartered status means that a firm has pledged to uphold a series of commitments made openly, transparently, and in full view of customers and clients. In the next slide, I'm going to explore these commitments in a bit more detail. So this declaration is linked to the corporate chartered ethos, which is right in the middle of the slide. And that's centered around the three core tenets of nurturing knowledge, client centricity, and serving society. And I hope you can read all of that and it's not come out too small for you today. So these are the commitments that both the CII and chartered firms make to uphold professional standards. So on the one hand, a corporate chartered firm commits to ongoing people development, aligning its ethics and values with the CII's, a customer-first approach, supporting initiatives that build public trust, contributing to the development of the profession, and wearing the chartered badge with pride. So that's on the one hand. And on the other hand, you have the CII's commitments to its firms, which is to provide relevant learning and to develop thought leadership, to showcase chartered expertise, facilitate communities that support good practice, drive collaboration initiatives focused on social good, and growing public awareness of chartered status. And I read all of these out because I think that it's really important to understand a bit more detail about what being chartered involves and our aspirations as well for our chartered firms. And we believe that all of the above will lead a firm to be able to demonstrate the 5 critical attributes of a chartered firm. And these attributes, which are recognized and valued strongly by customers, businesses, and the public alike. So how does this relate to being a cover holder at Lloyd's? Well, you can see on the right, I've put up a publication there, which Lloyd's recently published about building a high-performing culture in the market. And if you look closely at this slide, you'll see it lists ethics as a key requirement. And I think this ties in really well with the CII Code of Ethics and its companion guides, which we published very recently. In fact, the transparency one was published in December, just a few months ago. And these cover many of the areas that are included in the Lloyd's Culture Toolkit, such as digital ethics, transparency, and financially inclusive cultures. And this emphasis on ethics and knowledge really resonates with the public. According to research that we commissioned from the Institute of Customer Service in September of last year, the public believe, amongst other things, that chartered title holders are members of a professional body, completed professional qualifications, abide by a code of ethics, and have relevant technical and professional knowledge, as you can see from the figures here. And furthermore, chartered really makes a difference to customers. And in our most recent survey, it also revealed that 72% of customers said they were more likely to choose a chartered firm when they were seeking professional advice. So let's turn to how can the new Chartered Insurance Underwriting Agent title benefit cover holders? Well, I would say in lots of ways. We've talked about how the public recognizes the value of chartered, but it also has a positive impact on customers and staff. So what this shows here is 80% of firms surveyed agreed chartered status had enhanced the perception of the business among prospective customers, and 90% agreed chartered status had enhanced the perception of the business as a professional organization for new staff. And here I have some quotes which really demonstrate this further. So for auditors listening today, chartered status hopefully gives additional insight into the value placed by the business on the professionalism of its staff and how it's regarded amongst customers. So that should be relevant to the audit process. And auditors will also be interested to know how we support chartered firms and help them realize all of the aspects of professionalism. And on the next few slides, we're going to illustrate this, from providing promotional campaigns to enhance the public perception of chartered, which is here as an example of one, to providing promotional toolkits for firms to use to share the news with customers and the wider market about their chartered status. We also provide the firms the opportunity to join a chartered community, a community of practice through newsletters, podcasts, blogs, and opportunities to get involved in research and social outreach initiatives, such as going into schools and helping young people understand risk. So this is an example of one of our newsletters. At this point, I want to turn to my second and final poll question, and it's really directed at the cover holders in the audience. Because if any of your colleagues already have individual chartered status, then this will pave the way for achieving corporate chartered status. So here's the poll. Do any of your colleagues, or you and any of your colleagues, have individual chartered status? So let's see what comes out of this poll. So I can see on my Slido, the numbers are going up. And hopefully this shouldn't take a great deal of contemplation. There's 3 multiple choice possibilities. So hopefully we can see where we are. Yeah, we're up to 36 by my count. Hopefully we'll get up to numbers we got up to before, and then we could carry on with the discussion. I do like these polls because it's difficult when you're doing a virtual presentation to really interact with your audience. I can't see the audience. I can't see if you're awake, and this poll tells me you are, because you've got to click a button. So that's the good thing about it. But hopefully you'll stay with us. We've got a little bit more to present, and then we're going to do an open and live Q&A, which should be quite interesting and lively. So do stay with us. And I don't know why I say us, because it's going to be me answering your questions. So, but do stay with me. So we're up to around 50. Maybe people are a bit unsure. Feel free to say don't know if you don't know, and then we could move on. So how are we doing with it? What are the answers looking like so far?
Yeah, so the majority is saying yes. We've got about 48% of the attendees have said yes. 31% have said no, and 25% have said don't know. So most of them are yes for this one.
Okay, interesting. Oh, and I see we're starting to get some questions through as well, which is excellent. Brilliant.
Yeah,
okay.
They're ready.
Ready to go. But let's just talk about the poll then. So in terms of the reaction to the poll, if there are people within your firm who are already chartered, I'm just going to move my slide on for a second. What this is showing you here is our professional pathways. So, if somebody is not chartered, what the CII can do is support them. Obviously, if they're keen to go on that journey, we can support with professional pathways, which give people an opportunity to choose relevant modules for them that will move them along in qualification terms in order to reach chartered status. So we can help with that. But if you are already chartered, or you have colleagues who are already chartered, your firm may already be eligible for corporate chartered status. So it's something really worth thinking about. And take this first step. Email talkchartered@cii.co.uk and find out more about, whether you're eligible or how we can help. And I think, this equally applies to auditors who want to know more about, firms they're looking at and what their chartered status means. We're always happy to help. So this brings me to the final bit of my presentation today. So you heard from the CII, me, about the meaning, value, and benefits of chartered. So what's the cover holder perspective? So what we've done is we've asked 2 firms who are both approved cover holders at Lloyd's and also hold CII chartered status to comment on this. So I'm going to share with you those comments now. So we have Alan Rowe, Managing Director from Touchstone Underwriting, and he said, We are proud to be both an approved Lloyd's cover holder and CII chartered. And he went on to say that the public understands what chartered means. To be able to say, I'm chartered, puts us in the equivalence of accountants and solicitors. And that's the standard we are trying to achieve. We're showing everybody that we're trying to do things right and that we are better than normal. So that's a quote, direct quote from one of our chartered firms and cover holders. And we also asked Catherine Bell, the chairman of Magenta Insurance, and she said, chartered status is a way that we can pull together as a profession and be viewed as a profession instead of an industry. So she went on to say, for our team, it was such a boost to be awarded chartered status. So I hope that these quotes and comments illustrate the value of chartered from a cover holder perspective. So to conclude, this is a recap of the learning outcomes from this session. And I would just end by saying, I hope this overview will help auditors better understand how chartered status demonstrates alignment with both Lloyd's and CII professional standards. So that concludes my presentation today, and I would be very happy to take questions. So I see some coming through. 7 questions so far, which is excellent, and we have a bit of time. So how do you want to do this? Shall I dive right in with the Slido questions?
You can do if you want to read them, or I can read some out for you. It's up to you, Melissa.
Let's have a look. Well, everyone can see these, right, on the Slido?
Yes, they can. So the most popular question that the attendees are sort of voting for that they want to be asked is the one at the top. So
okay, I'll start with that then. So the question for those of you not with the Slido app, how do you monitor persons claiming or using CII status who are not complying with CPD requirements? Ooh, naughty, naughty. Right. We absolutely monitor CPD of all of our qualified members by doing an audit of members, a percentage of members every year. And this changes every year. So anybody in our qualified cohort can be selected for a CPD audit, and then we expect them to provide us with their CPD records, and we check through and ensure that the right number of hours is completed, and also that the CPD it meets, you know, our CPD requirements, that it's relevant to the individual and it meets their development needs. So yes, absolutely. So I hope I've answered that one. It seems to have fallen off the Slido now, so I'm taking that as a yes. So let's see what's next. What's next in line? Is chartered status in relation to UK standards, or is this an international designation? Very good question. And I know that there are a lot of international audience members today, and as well as international cover holders. What I would say is that at this moment in time, we're not accepting new applications from international cover holders. But we are looking at ways that we might be able to do that in the future. So at this moment in time, this is a designation for UK cover holders only. Hope that answers that question. Okay, now we have another question. So in short, charter status for a firm means basically that they are approved by the CII. In a matter of speaking, if by approved you means meets our criteria for chartered status, and I hope I've covered that adequately in our presentation today. But we have a whole website, or rather I should say a whole page on our website. If you type in CII corporate chartered, you can delve into all the detailed rules around chartered status, and find out, you know, what that means and whether your firm meets those requirements. So yes, in a manner of speaking, it means that the CII is satisfied, that they meet our standards of professionalism, and they can wear the chartered badge. And that's something I didn't mention about the ongoing checks. And this is a question has now just prompted me to answer that. What ongoing checks are there on chartered firms, for example, audits? So very good question from GP. Every year we have what's called an annual review. And it's essentially a reapplication. Oh, I should be taking off, by the way. Let me take off this screen so you could see me. Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you see me out there?
Yeah, perfect.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant. So, like I said, I was talking about the annual checks that we do on chartered firms. We basically go through a reapplication every year and check all the information in the application and verify that it's correct. So there's some things are self-declared and some things we verify by using independent sources such as the FCA website and Companies House. So I hope that answers your question. But in terms of doing sort of randomized audits, well, because we check all of our chartered firms every year, we don't do randomized audits throughout the year, but we are interested in looking at ways of aligning with the audits that the Lloyd's does. And this is something we will explore further. Again, the idea being to streamline and make things easier for those firms who are both CII chartered and approved cover holders. I hope that answers the question. So how does the CII, I'm going to just keep going. How does the CII relate to claims professionals? Good question. Have you heard of our Society of Claims Professionals? We have a society which is focused on claims and that community, which has, you can join, if you're a member of the CII, you can join a relevant society that's relevant to your profession. We also have an underwriting society of Underwriting Professionals. We have a society of insurance broking as well for the broking community. And that means you receive targeted content that's relevant to your area through newsletters, magazines, also targeted CPD and content like webinars, podcasts, and so on and so forth, and dedicated websites as well. I hope that answers the question. I'm going to move on. Some of us older auditors have FCII or ACII qualifications, but these do not appear on your charts. Does the CII plan to grandfather these qualifications? I'm not quite sure what this particular question is referring to, because we very much do recognize FCII and ACII. Those are still our highest designations, and in terms of the experience behind them. And so I'm not quite sure why this particular questioner feels they're not recognized, but I'm very happy. I should say that if anyone would like to contact me after this presentation, please do so. I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me on melissa.collett@cii.co.uk. I'm on Twitter, so please feel free to contact me with any questions if I don't answer them today. Okay. In the absence of a chartered auditor audit firm, can auditors apply For chartered status, very interesting question. I don't know. Maybe there is a body out there that offers a chartered auditor status. That is not something I'm aware of, but it may be out there. For us, it's not something that we provide a chartered title for, but if you're doing underwriting, then we can discuss further. So interesting question. Oh, here it looks like we've got someone from the US asking a question. What is the equivalent of being chartered in the US? I wish I knew the answer to that. That's a really interesting question. And maybe it was raised by a lady called Jane. If Jane knows the answer, I'd love to hear that, because although I have an American accent, which I'm sure you can hear loud and clear, and I was born and raised there, I've had my career in the UK, so I'm not very up on all the chartered titles, if there are any, in the US. So that would be very interesting to know more. So let's see what else is on the Slido. I'm enjoying this very much. GP is back asking a question. Does the CII require firms to pass the CII delegated underwriting course P66? Again, really great questions. So we have been looking at our entire we've been reviewing our professional map, and what we've been doing is seeing how we can make the professional journey really relevant for particular sectors. So if you're an underwriter, what things should you be doing, what courses to demonstrate that you're qualified. So that kind of model is being looked at right across the board, not just for underwriting. So I would say watch this space, because we're going to be sharing details of our professional map later in this year. But I would certainly encourage anyone who wants to be a chartered insurance underwriting agent to most certainly consider doing the delegated underwriting course. And we have another question here. Hopefully we still have a bit of time. Will the CII consider creating a chartered auditor role for Lloyd's and insurance auditors? It's a similar question to what came before, chartered auditor. It's not something we've considered as yet, but I'm sure we would consider it if there was a massive demand. So do contact me afterwards if this is something that's that you want to explore further. And we have another question here. Is chartered status relevant across professions? Absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of charter, because that means you belong to a community of chartered professionals, which we all have heard of: chartered accountants, chartered surveyors, chartered engineers. There's many chartered professions, and that's why we're very keen for people in the insurance sector to join the ranks of other trusted, recognized chartered professionals, because what our vision is at the CII is for insurance to be and enjoy parity of esteem with the other chartered professions. So that's our vision, and by becoming chartered, we hope that we will get there with all of you together. We have a question here. Is becoming chartered mandatory for Lloyd's cover holders? Nothing is mandatory, but I would encourage it, because as I talked about earlier, I really believe it demonstrates, and Lloyd's also believes that it demonstrates alignment with both of our ideas of professional standards. So really it's a win-win in terms of what what it shows about your firm and you as an individual. I've got a question here from Paul Brady, which is nice to see. I quoted Paul earlier, and Paul very kindly invited me to this conference. So he says, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any thoughts about how CII and auditors can work together, share information on areas of common interest? And I absolutely do have some thoughts on that. I would really love to talk to some auditors. I want to say more auditors, but I need to talk to some before I talk to more. I'd like to talk to some of the auditors hopefully listening in today and explore with you what are the areas of concern you have as auditors. How can the CII help to provide with evidence to help your audits? How can we share information about firms in a way that benefits those firms, benefits Lloyd's and the CII together, benefits the whole profession? So I would really like to explore that further, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can do and a lot of overlap there that we can take advantage of. So thanks for asking that question, Paul. I see we've got a few minutes left, so I'm just cantering on through. What are the benefits of being chartered for entities and individuals outside of the UK? So as I mentioned earlier, at the moment, we are not taking applications for entities outside the UK for chartered firm status or corporate chartered status. However, individuals, whether they're in the UK or outside the UK, can become chartered as individuals. As I ought to have mentioned earlier, the Chartered Insurance Institute is a professional body on a global basis. We have 125,000 members worldwide in 150 countries. So chartered is something that's recognized all over the world, and the beauty of getting a chartered title is just that you can move around, it's portable, and it's recognized wherever you go. So I'd encourage individuals to explore this title if they're qualified to do so. And if you don't know if you're qualified to do so, go to our website, type in CII Chartered, and find out more. And I have another question flying at me. How can I maximize my chartered status through branding and my website? Well, it sounds like this person is chartered, which is great. Absolutely. We have a chartered toolkit, which is designed for just that, to help maximize your status by giving you lots of collateral that you can use on your website. You could use as printed collateral, digital collateral for your customers, for your staff, to make, to really shout about it. And so people know. And here's a great question, really important as well. Does the regulator recognize the value of chartered? Well, Lloyd's is in essence a regulator of its market, and as we've demonstrated today, Lloyd's itself recognizes the value of chartered and its alignment with the Lloyd's standards, and that's something we're very keen to promote this year as we do more collaborative work together. In terms of the Financial Conduct Authority, which is sort of the ultimate regulator in the insurance space, they also recognize the value of chartered, and we're in continuous dialogue with the regulator, the FCA regulator, about professionalism, what chartered means, and why it aligns with regulatory imperatives as well. So I think this is a really good place to draw things to a conclusion. we've reached the end of our time together. And so I want to thank all of you for your excellent thoughtful questions. You've kept me on my toes. I'm losing my voice now as a result, but quite happy to do so because I really found it valuable to engage in the dialogue with you. And I hope we can continue the dialogue further. Feel free to get in touch, and thank you for listening today.